A lot of people focus on the negatives. I understand why. The negatives can be frustrating, the reading struggles, the spelling mistakes, mixing words up, forgetting things, or trying to explain something, and having it come out completely differently to how it sounded in your head. Those things are real, and I'm certainly not pretending they don't exist. But there are advantages too. In fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when talking about dyslexia is focusing only on what they struggle with and not enough on what they can be exceptionally good at. For me, one of the biggest advantages is problem solving. I often look at a complicated process and see a simpler route. I'll look at something that has 10 steps and immediately start asking myself whether it really needs 10 steps at all. Sometimes I can see shortcuts, patterns, or connections that other people haven't noticed because my brain isn't always following the same path everyone else is following. I can break things down into systems and workflows. I enjoy technology because technology follows logic and processes. If something works, it works. If it doesn't, you can usually trace back through the process and work out why. I think that's one of the reasons. I've always enjoyed working with technology. It allows me to take a problem apart, understand how all the pieces fit together, and then rebuild it in a way that makes sense to me. I also find that I can often explain things in ways other people haven't thought of. Sometimes I'll look at a problem and think, why is everyone making this so complicated? I'll see a much simpler solution. That doesn't mean my solution is always right, but it often comes from looking at things differently. I think that's one of the strengths that can come from having a dyslexic brain, because you're used to finding different ways around your own challenges. You naturally become quite good at finding different ways around other problems as well. I've noticed this especially when learning something new. If the standard explanation doesn't make sense to me, I'll often keep looking until I find another way of understanding it. Over time, that develops into a habit of questioning processes and looking for alternative approaches, rather than simply accepting that there's only one way to do something. Sometimes that can be incredibly valuable in the workplace or when solving problems, and also when solving problems in everyday life. I've lost count of the number of times I've suggested a solution that seemed obvious to me but hadn't occurred to anyone else in the room. The funny thing is, a lot of the time I don't even realize I'm doing it. To me, it just seems like common sense. I think that's one of the reasons dyslexic people can sometimes be very good entrepreneurs, engineers, inventors, technicians, and problem solvers. We spend so much of our lives finding workarounds and alternative routes that eventually thinking differently becomes second nature. Of course, that same strength can sometimes be frustrating as well. There are moments when I can see a solution so clearly that I genuinely struggle to understand why nobody else can see it. Then I have to remind myself that they're probably looking at me, wondering why I couldn't spell a word they've just written without thinking about it. And that's really what dyslexia is for me. Different strengths, different weaknesses, a different way of looking at the same problem. Not better, not worse, just different.